Thank you very much to the organisers for putting on this event, and great for the sponsors to be involved in something like this, where for the first time you're having patients and the public accessible to the way you're innovating. So big congratulations on that. Now, I'm from Ireland, so I have to start every talk with a joke. And the joke I'll give you is what happened on the way here. I watched a movie, I spent a night watching a movie, and it's called The Man of Steel. It's the new Superman. And I watched it the night before I was giving a Going Mobile Summit. I was chairing a Going Mobile Summit in Dublin. And the interesting bit about it was, I realised we didn't need this event. We've already all gone mobile. Because there was two things that really struck out, made the whole movie, spoiled it for me really. And the first one was that there were still jobs in journalism. And the second one was that Superman guy, Clark Kent, he spent the first half hour just looking for a telephone box to get changed in. Couldn't find one anywhere. So some people think I'm a bit weird because I just think mobile and healthcare in nearly everything that I do in my work. And my first memory in life was the sound of telecoms in healthcare. Now my little brother was ill, and I went to Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, and I saw my mother being handed coins for the first time. And I realised where these coins came from. They came from the clinicians that were talking to her by the bedside. And those clinicians made a very distinctive sound. They jingled. They jingled because they had very deep pockets in their white coats, and in the bottom of that pocket there was coins. And they used it to prefer to the parents when they were giving them bad news. So more coins, more bad news, sort of thing like this. And the amazing thing was that I realised in the world's best hospital, the most expensive and the most powerful technology that we had access to was only 10 pence, and it was at the bottom of the corridor. It was in a little mushroom thing, which I thought was some sort of teleporter, but literally take a picture of yourself with a telephone, because your grandchildren will not believe when they grow up that telephones had strings on them and were tied to walls. So this was it. You know, you could call the professor at the Mayo Clinic with this thing. The MRI machine, which hadn't really materialized then, they were still using CT scanners, was just materializing. You were just, you know, that wasn't connected, but you could pick that phone up and call anyone in the world. And so the power of that was immediately abundant to me. Fast forward some years, obviously that inspired me to look into medicine. And in 1995, I was at medical school and I had a mobile phone. I didn't have the means or an actual need to have this mobile phone, but I'd convinced another brother of mine who was a vet that was a reason to have a mobile phone for his work, and that was as an out-of-call vet. Instead of running back to the answer machine, I told him it was cost effective for him to buy a mobile phone. At the time, he couldn't see any social reason to have a mobile phone. So unless he was working, he didn't want to see the phone. So it meant I could go around with this fancy mobile phone. And just to tell you, help you realise how far back we're looking here, if you look very closely, it actually said on that phone that it was a cellular telephone. In case anyone got confused, didn't know what I was actually holding. Now, people would actually ask me, what is that? So what is mHealth? And that's really where we are today. And a lot of this is already just assumed. We already use mobiles to call emergency services. 10 years ago, there was a massive spate when Nokia built a phone that if you pressed the button for too long, would ring emergency 999 in the UK. And every emergency call bank got completely flooded. And so they started building in caller ID and some screening technologies. So this is commonplace. And what is it? And to understand what it is the leverage of mobile, which is the newest mass media for health. Understanding mobile, not as a phone, not as a network, and not as a technology which we own or is in our pocket, but as a mass media, is fundamental to seeing a lot of the opportunities. If we look back at some of the older mass medias, we realise that each one has been unique and distinct from the ones that went before it. So whether it was the print, it was recordings, with the gramophone, the radio, the cinema. But every time one of these new mass medias came along, they tried to do what they did with the old one with it. A lot of what we're seeing being done with the mobile today is like trying to be the mini internet in our pocket. With the first cinema advert, they actually, it's a good example of this, but they showed a newspaper clip on the screen and they played the radio advert. It was actually for a tobacco company. But that's how they thought you would actually use this new media. It was just a big newspaper, and it had radio access. So they didn't realize that you could make moving images and sounds could come around the customer in a dedicated environment with a big curtain in front of them. And that's where we really are now with mobile. We're just beginning to see people leveraging the unique assets that this new mass media has. And already 8 of these have been identified. These include that the mobile is permanently carried. It's a personal device which we don't share. That's huge applications for healthcare. I remember handing VHS cassettes to patients and video, DVDs, and them having to go home and put it in the front room and watch it in front of their family. And for many health needs, that was just didn't work. The mobile's always on, so we can always call our patient. Our patient can register to have us call them and go to bed if they're sick and have us call them. It has a built-in payment channel. That's amazingly powerful for delivering content. And it's there at the creative point of impulse. I want to take my blood pressure reading. I want to put my mood reminder, how I'm feeling, into my phone. This is a unique opportunity we never had with another mass media. We never had the PC so readily accessible, for example. It's very accurate measurement. And inside these, it can also offer augmented reality. You'll see this with the Google glasses. But actually, you can do a lot of this stuff with the mobile phone. So here in Lisbon, I can point my mobile phone at some language. It will actually translate it. I can demo that. Anyone would like to look at that. Mobile also has its own trillion-dollar industry. It's the newest trillion-dollar industry. That's very important because what it means is there's a lot of talent that's coming into this play with the mobile healthcare market, which we're going to learn lots from other industries, and we are. More than 6 billion people also have a mobile subscription. This is the first technology. We're about to hit, I think we just hit it actually, the mobile moment where the same number of people on the world as subscriptions of this technology. This all literally happened in 15 years. And healthcare has actually been key to its adoption. So if you look at why people bought mobile phones, in the beginning it was doctors with pagers, which eventually got upgraded into cell phone networks that we use today. If you look at why people started using mobile phones, it was always handy if you were a mum to have this, because you know, if there was a problem in the house or something, you were looking after your mum, you could call for stuff while you're on your way to help your aged parents or something like that. And what we've also just lived through, and this shows how difficult it is to realize what we've come through. We've come through a decade that in a decade's time, we will realize was the Nokia decade. This is a brand that became bigger than Coca-Cola, a game that became the biggest, most popular game in the world called Snake. Who hasn't played that? 10 years, and now this brand's obviously dying, but it just shows you how quick and massive this industry is, a mega industry that takes no prisoners. Convergence to mobile was key to that. All of these consumer technologies actually already have converged with the mobile phone, whether they be iPods or cameras or gaming devices, alarm clocks, pagers. Just, you know, you can't think of a consumer device really that hasn't already converged to what we call the cannibal of cannibals. This mobile phone with this mega industry that will suck up anything that comes in its way that it can converge with. And a lot of this isn't smartphone stuff and apps. The key thing here is it's now redesigning healthcare right from the grassroots. So whether that's your grandparent being sent a SMS reminder for their doctor appointment, or them saying they can't make the appointment via SMS, these are huge new opportunities for us to redesign how we access care. And the biggest opportunity we have actually today, right now, to control future healthcare costs is to teach seniors to use SMS. It is fundamental because when they use mobile services, as we can see in markets like Japan, the world's most senior market, the world's most adopted smartphone market in the world, this can be of invaluable help. The tsunami hit Japan and they turned off the voice network to allocate it to emergency services for the response effort. The data service was used by geriatric patients because they all use mobile data services. 80+% of Japanese senior citizens use mobile data. You imagine the opportunity for them to stay connected while the voice networks were being used for these more dedicated emergency opportunities. So that's a real key takeaway for anyone, no matter where you come from in healthcare. Teach your senior patients to use mobile. Teach them why to use a mobile, to leave it on, to appreciate reachability. Now, convergence is really redesigning healthcare. And please, after this talk, I'm going to be here for the rest of the evening. Come up and ask me. I can demonstrate any of this. But this tablet has got all my medical textbooks on it. And they can all be searched with one keyword. Right through all my textbooks. I say it's like a wriggly worm who could just go through a whole library and pull out all those little words. And I can use that in a consulting environment. If I want to explain something to a patient or I need a picture, instead of relying on posters to be on the wall, I can just pull to this tool and provide this to the patient. It also means I've got up-to-date reference materials. So I'm not relying on that old dog-eared book with last year's prescription guidelines. That's key for hospitals now who are adopting mobile solutions for their employees. They're finding library budgets can be much more effectively used when they're put on the mobile tools. So for example, with some of the big libraries in the UK, some of the medical schools there, they can pull the book back from here. It never gets dog-eared, it never gets lost. They can allocate their resources much better, and they know how much these books are being used and referred to. What they also know is that none of the books are out of date. None of the clinicians can't get access to the library at 3 o'clock in the morning, and are using that as an excuse to try and remember something off the top of their head. Videos, patient videos, you know, this is a phenomenal opportunity we have of providing content to patients that can help them understand what they're looking at, to help doctors explain what they're trying to explain. mHealth is a fantastic thing. Samsung have produced this Samsung S4 Galaxy, 10 million have already sold. It's unique in that it has brought smartphone-based mobile healthcare applications native. They call it mHealth, it's got a pedometer, it's rather useful. A way of guidance, seeing how much we're keeping active. In Japan, they've had that for a number of years, and it's a great way of a doctor just to look with one glance to see how active the patient's being. This is another thing, temperature and humidity. When we had that huge heat wave that caused tens of thousands of lives to be lost across Europe, the ability for a mobile phone to trigger up warnings is a completely new way for mobile operators to be involved in the care environment. This is the #1 smartphone health app on iOS. It's called SleepX, developed by the guy who invented the camera phone, and it monitors your sleep. Out of that, there's a huge, massive opportunity for us to look at patients who are on medications that are being disrupted, having their sleep disrupted. Walgreens found in the first 18 months of their mobile strategy that they made more money than the last 10 years, decade, Walgreens.com. That's a phenomenal thing. It means that basically if you're talking to anyone in the pharmaceutical industry, this is already taken over their industry, and if they're behind the curve on this mobile stuff, they're going to be left behind very, very quickly. Diabetes Manager. This is a product by WellDoc. Must look these up because this is now being sold like a drug in the US. Smart Stay is a fantastic thing. Again, on that Samsung mHealth, really shows you what happens when we put extra cores into these mobile smartphone processors. Because this phone can now look for your eyes, the pupils of your eyes. And what it's looking for is, if you're looking at the phone, to drop the battery. It's a way of saving battery, effectively. But what happens with this is that it looks at you, sees that your eyes are looking. It can also track your eyes and see things like strokes coming up. Now, they haven't got any approval for it, but this is absolutely driving. This is a neurological exam that's being just done to keep the battery saved. Can you imagine the opportunity we're going to see as that develops up? This is a device sold in Apple stores around the world. It's a weigh scale that's connected to the mobile phone. Again, another product here. This is a blood pressure cuff. It's a really simple product to put on my arm. Put it on my arm, plug it in my phone. No extra learning needed. I can show you just how easy that is. A live core. This is something that must be demonstrated because it's one of those unbelievable things about mobile. This is a smartphone case. I simply clip it into, I clip your phone into this smartphone case, and I have a clinical ECG. So this device works as simple as this. Click the button, open the app, and you're now looking at my ECG. And so you're looking at a single lead ECG. I'm 91 there because I'm up on stage here. But you can also see things like irregularity. And I've found on patients some irregularity there. Oh, you've got that stick. Yeah. So you can see what that looks like. I can also put it on here, and you can see it a little bit. Yeah, it's quite amazing. What this can also do is actually read an implanted device. So I can hold it in my hand. I have an assistant come up here and put a therapeutic magnet over the implanted device. This will tell me if it's switched on, it will tell me if its leads are intact, and it will tell me what its battery life is. Now, I bet you everybody in this room knows the battery level of their mobile phone, but nobody with an implanted device knows the battery level or the switched on status of their implanted medical device. That's a phenomenal technology, isn't it? This also is converging to other things. So everything that should be connected will be connected. This is a spoke alarm with a SIM card. You can put your Portugal Telecom SIM card in there. Anytime that triggers, that will be provided to your whoever you want. So it might be your local fire service. It could be your next door neighbour. If you're blind deaf, it might go to your senior phone, which will buzz with a 100 decibel alarm. And with that 100 decibel alarm, you'll wake up. A lot of people who are senior actually lose the hearing in that part of the spectrum of their hearing. This is an amazing device for blood sugar. Anyone who works with diabetic patients knows how important it is to obviously be recording this accurately. What this device does is simply you give it to a child, they go to school with this, no more jotters or keeping it journaled, no modems like we heard earlier of the diabetic patient. This isn't home care. This is something you just carry with your phone. Mum immediately sees on her iPhone that the child has done it, sees the reading, and can actually reward him with Smurfberries, which is a little blue men. But kids love this game, and it really brings some interactivity between patients and their carers. Everything should be connected, and that extends to medical records. Health Thoughts is an exciting thing. One of the things you'll also see is the next mass media, which is augmented reality and these Google glasses. But the thing that just baffles me about this is that we're doing so little with what we've already got, just the sounds that are around of us. So this is a device that I use to control a range of things, including my mobile phone, my computer, and you find it's phenomenal what you're hearing and what can be transcribed using technologies like Siri, which is powered by a company called Nuance. But essentially, that's it. You know, you're talking to your mobile phone and you're actually just giving it all the information. Book me an appointment with a doctor. Just like you would use Siri to find out where there's a Starbucks that's open. So I'm going to tell you now what my service does. It's called 3G Doctor, and we developed it because, like I say, I always think mobile and I always think healthcare. So between the two, I thought it was a great match. And I thought there was an opportunity in this video technology and these 3G networks to actually bring patients and put doctors in their hands, in their pocket on a device, and make it economically available. So 3G Doctor offers documented mobile video consultations with registered doctors. We do this for 24/7, so anytime you want to use it, non-emergency use, and it's £35, one-off fee, all inclusive. It's bundled like a mobile service, really. You register on the secure 3G Doctor website. This is optimized for mobile, so if you go on a mobile phone, you'll see it looks completely different to the PC version. And then you top up your account, paying the £35 using the means of almost any electronic payment means. You have to be in the UK or Ireland to use this service. That's for regulatory reasons. But you can also share your health fault record or any other, which is online accessible through our SSL secure website, sharing with us this login information. Then what happens is you can share your concerns by completing an interactive medical history questionnaire. This is a product which we took over from the US and enabled for mobile. It's been clinically validated at the Mayo Clinic. But basically what it does is it immortalizes the history-taking skills of the world's best doctors and puts it on a mobile experience. And that's where we're putting that Siri technology to work to actually make that a thing that you can actually just talk to, which will, in my eyes, be an incredible achievement for the mobile industry in terms of they've created the ability to take a history from a patient. And when you see how long we spend at medical school learning how to do that, you realize how disruptive this is going to be and how empowering for patients to be heard technology like that's going to be. What we also allow is patients to share any other additional information that they feel is important. That might include photos or websites, YouTube videos that they've watched. If you've ever tried to share a YouTube video with your doctor, you'll know how difficult that sort of conversation is. But with our service, what we're trying to also provide is every time a patient comes to us, we try to give them at least 1 or 2 YouTube videos as part of the documentation they go away with. So a doctor then reviews the info that you've provided, you've shared to them, and then conducts any necessary research they need to do before video calling you back to consult on your problem. The video consultation itself lasts normally no more than about 10 minutes. And afterwards, you get the opportunity where you just log in onto the secure site and you can download, print the comprehensive written consult report. That's got all the information you shared, the information, the advice the doctor gave, an action plan, what to do next. The great thing is it means you don't need to repeat everything you said over and over. And this is one of the key lessons that you're going to take away here. This document includes an action plan that makes sure that the next move you make is the right one. And that's what we're selling, the documented advice of a registered doctor. It's not a replacement for a family doctor where the best care can be got. But there's many people who live in foreign cities or who aren't registered with a family doctor or don't feel they can go and challenge their family doctor that can use a service like this. And we're definitely not selling prescriptions, but many of the action plans that we provide do recommend patients to go and get something over the counter. So, following the consult, patients get the opportunity to provide feedback with us on how they got on, how this experience worked for them. So the question I'm going to give you all is hands up if you have a good doctor. Does anybody have a good doctor? And I'm going to pick you. Can you tell me why your doctor's good, please? Yeah. He knows you. And your doctor is good because? Anyone else? He looks you in the eyes when you talk to him. The amazing thing is, none of these are actually quantitative ways of saying he's a good doctor. He probably is, because he hasn't been struck off and he's still working there. You've not had a problem with him. But that is actually not a way of saying he's a good doctor. And this is one of the big challenges that doctors have. Because what's happened is we've devised malpractice as a way of protecting patients. So you know that when you're looking in the eyes of someone who's still got his job because he hasn't been sued for malpractice, that he must be good, that he hasn't been sued, and therefore you're safe with this doctor. And actually that does work to an extent. But as we move into this new area, what we're finding is the best way to measure the effectiveness of care is actual documentation. And if we look to industries like the aviation industry, we find that that's really key to what they've done there, is actually to document what's happening and then to actually follow checklists to have it done. What we have with healthcare is a system that is currently largely undocumented. And that documentation and the value of getting that history from the patient is really key to satisfying one of the big problems that patients have, that my doctor doesn't listen to me. This guy, ePatient Dave, is someone you must look up and read about his story, watch his TED Talks. Give me my damn data is his slogan. But what happens when you start with a read-write approach to electronic healthcare records? We've started with this thing that belongs to the government or belongs to the healthcare provider. But what if it belonged to the patient and they helped write it and they helped read it and review it? Patient expectations are changing. This has to happen. If we look here and you look what patients are doing, spending their time in the clinic doing, you know, reading out-of-date magazines looks like the majority of the time they're spending in that room. Filling in the same old paper form that they filled in last time. If you look what they're doing after the consultations, half of them are just worried and uncertain. The rest are Googling the wrong things, and the small, you know, asking other people or trying to remember what was said in the consult. So can you imagine another industry that was as undocumented as healthcare? So let's imagine filling up your car was undocumented, completely undocumented process. Everyone's filled the car up, right, with fuel. So let's just imagine, here's my petrol tank. Okay, oh, no working fuel gauge, that's documentation. So I'm in the car, I don't know how much fuel is in the engine. It'd be quite crazy, when would I fill up? Luckily there's a roadside garage with petrol being sold, but there's no prices, because that's documentation. So I don't know, oh well, I'll pull in there because I probably need petrol. Then I go up to the pumps, I don't know the octane level. There's no prices on the pumps. Okay, what if I went into the store to pay and they said, you'll find out how much it cost in 3 months' time on your credit card bill? Well, imagine how you'd use a product like that. You'd be really sparing. Half of this, you know, go for a nice drive on Sunday wouldn't be happening. We'd be sharing lifts everywhere. We'd be, you know, working close to where we live, and everything would be very different if we had a product that was undocumented. And that's really what's happening in healthcare, and that's the real key lesson here. If we look to way undocumented care is unengaging patients, and we look at patients and what they're doing, they're engaging with other things because they do offer documentation. So a lot of doctors worry that patients go away and look on the internet and read all this stuff from, you know, drug companies or, you know, healers and stuff like this, and they just wonder, why are the patients engaging so much with this? But they're not quick to look at themselves and say, I'm leaving these patients with an undocumented experience. They're coming to me, they're getting nothing, and they're going away, and then they're making do their best way. So really, mHealth is a game changer because it enables documentation. And that's a key change that's going to redesign healthcare. And what 3G Doctor does is it starts doing that in a little way with patients who want to talk about a problem they have with information. And some doctors will say to us, what would patients talk about? And many patients will say, how can doctors not see that this is exactly what I want to talk about? But what we're not doing is we're not just referring on to doctors. We're saying to doctors, this patient has talked to us about this problem. Here's the documentation of what they talked to us about. Now you can get stuck in on doing the real high quality bit, which is caring for that patient and providing the answers that they want. So I'm going to thank you very much. Please come up and you know, talk to me afterwards about any of these devices. What you'll see with these devices, and I really should explain the asset that's in some of these. This is a fantastic product for anyone who's disabled, anyone who's blind or deaf, or if you've got an autistic kid. 7 times more likely to be in a house fire. An autistic kid will often take the battery out of this, and taking the battery out causes a big problem because you don't know, you think it's still working. They've taken it out because they don't like the beep sound, or, but with this, what will happen is you'll be sent an alert. So if you live next door to a senior, you put this in their house, you'll get a message in the night. It can be an invaluable thing for keeping people living independently longer. A company in the UK have just started working with this product. They deliver gas. It shows how wide and diverse this market is. They deliver oxygen to homes of patients with COPD. This information can provide valuable, life-saving information to a fire brigade on response to a building that has oxygen canisters, because it says where they're stored. It also tells them the status of the patient. For example, they're bedbound, they're a smoker, they have these oxygen canisters, and they sleep in an upstairs bedroom. So it's information like that getting there before you can even think of picking up a phone to make a call to an emergency service. This product is a completely non-invasive fall monitor. It's a PIR sensor. It tells me the temperature, if the temperature drops in the house or goes too high. It also helps me if the patient is, we set a band of waking hours. If the patient isn't seen, what happens is the phone beeps. And on this phone, there's another very great product. It's got a hardware button that cancels. So I could be watching a TV or having a long bath. All I've got to do is press that. If I don't press that, that triggers that I've had a fall or I've had a seizure, and someone can make an appropriate response. This phone has got a 100 decibel alarm ringtone. That's as loud as a train, so it's no more longer I'm on the train, it's this is the train. And if you can see the visibility on this, the contrast here, some of you will actually be able to read this from the audience, but it's also got in case of emergency button with all my medical information in there. That's valuable. This pendant's also key. I press this once and a message is sent to my first line carer who can respond. They can call me back when they've got a free moment, which kind of changes the way we talk with seniors actually, because often we're working and they're at home and they don't want to interrupt us. And what we find with this button is one press of that and your daughter knows, call me when you get a chance. Quite an amazing way, but that's all it takes to send an SMS with technology like this. This is another great product. It's got a technology called Bluetooth Low Energy in it, and the mobile phone looks for it every time the mobile phone moves. If it doesn't see it, it sends me a message. So if I leave it on here and walk off the stage, the phone will beep. And the great thing about that is it keeps track of this. This is an eye drop, conventional eye drop. I put it in this. In the base of this green thing is the location sensor. then what happens is I've got much better grasp of that if I've got arthritis or something like that. It also got this thing to hold open my eyelid so I can get the drops applied easier. You can imagine people who've got arthritis in their fingers. With this technology, I can't forget that and go off golfing. That's a key thing because these people have to do that on a regular basis. So just leaves me really on my time to thank very much again to the sponsors for your time and audience. And please, I'll be here afterwards. Anyone wants to have a look at these devices or connect with the people who developed these and the apps that go with them, don't hesitate because I'm always happy to connect you. Thanks very much. So we're going to do some questions from the floor. Are you please? Yeah? Do we have any? The lights are a bit bright. A question there? Do I see a hand? Yeah.
Oh, I enjoyed very much your presentation. It was very nice. I have a my grandmother has 93, and I'm very happy because she's very healthy and she has a phone like that. And sometimes when she is anxious and she says, I have to go to the doctor, I say, please stay at home, take a tea, and she says, well, because with lots of information, sometimes she gets more nervous and worse. My question is that you are not afraid that people with so many devices gets over informed and over documented and
Yes, absolutely. So one of the big fears is that people feel we're medicalizing everything. So come into a community pharmacist and he's got one of these on his phone. And while you're picking up your medication, because you're on a number of medications, you're 93, a number of medications, or some of these medications actually have side effects on the heart. AFib's a common condition. Just holding this will actually alert the pharmacist to that. That can be key because what you're nipping in the bud there is the biggest risk factor for stroke. With this product, you're medicalizing the fall in the home, but you're also picking up nocturnal urination. Nocturnal urination, any GP knows how to fix that. Simple prescription, that problem goes away. It's the biggest risk factor for hip fractures in the UK and Ireland. So you may be medicalizing it, but what you're preventing happening is this very unfortunate environment which your mum could potentially fall into. And so sometimes when I've medicalized someone with this and detected their AF, and I've got a great story 2 years ago when I first started using this, and I diagnosed this on someone at a party. They went out and they went to the GP with the documentation we provided them, and they said, at a party, and they said, you're using ECG at a party. And the doctor leant in and grabbed this lady by the arm and said, are you feeling okay? And the old lady thought, yeah, I think it's a bit mad as well, mobile phones doing stuff like that. And she said, no, are you feeling okay? Because you're in AFib now. You know, you're very irregular heart rate, this isn't normal. And, oh, is that what she was feeling her pulse? But the amazing thing is the patient then came back to us and said, you know what, that was the first time that doctor ever touched me. So, I don't know, if you hand this to your patient while you're tappity away on the computer, is that medicalizing them, or is that what patients expect? Obviously, there's, you know, it's a bit of balance, but what I hope is that people don't have things which can be prevented, and they can live full, healthy lives rather than, you know, blood pressure is a really key example. You're a pregnant woman, you lose the child, and you haven't been recording blood pressure because it's too cumbersome. The devices are to jot all the numbers down. It's all difficult. A device like this, we can just plug it in there, and it's away, and it's all charted. Just makes it a little bit easier. But yes, there is concern of that. But I think when it's done with doctors, it's rare that it's just hype. You know, we're not trying to scare people. Any other questions? Does that satisfy? Yeah? Please, fire away. I can't see you.
Thank you very much. My question is, aren't people hesitant in having consultations in this way, in the mobile way?
Do they like it? Or?
No, yes, they like, or are they hesitant in or?
Well, the great thing is we're only a small care provider, and we've got a market that's the UK and Ireland. So between those two markets, you know, we've got 70 million patients that can use this technology. Also with employers, this is very, very attractive. So if you have an employee who hasn't come in today, sending them a 3G doctor consult can actually be a very good way of making sure that as a small employer, you're looking after employees. And you are concerned, and you are giving them the opportunity, you know, to talk about health problems. So the drive is from different things, but a lot of it is patients, you know, in some markets cannot get to see a doctor. But they really find it hard to research information online and bring it to the doctor consult. A lot of doctors have got a habit of putting it in what they call the round file, which is a waste paper bin on the floor. And that's terrible if you spend hours at home researching stuff online and you're going in and it's not being, you know, it's not fitting into the system because you feel that your work's not being respected. With this, what's happening is we can look at that and tell you, no, don't go and annoy your family doctor with that. That is a load of rubbish you read on the internet. That's actually a common thing, is that patients get worried about stuff that they shouldn't be. And so in terms of medicalising, sometimes they've been medicalised by the websites that they visited. And what we need to do is reassure them that, you know, this isn't often the right information. So that can be key. Does that help? Thanks.
Over here, on your right side.
Yeah, okay.
I was very curious about the ECG that show up. And first of all, I want to know you'll be able to use it during exercise and, you know, fix it.
Yeah, so you can actually get an adhesive strip. We've actually put it on racing animals, like horses, and the device can be played into the ear of the jockey who's sitting on the top. Yeah. We see when the horse is in cardiac rhythm and things like that. There's a whole range of things, but basically I've shown you how small the device is. It's just clip off, and actually in about a few years' time we're going to see this where a paramedic comes along, cuts there, cut, and he's got the 12 leads stuck on to the patient with no wires.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
I think that's going. Already paramedics are using this. Patient who's stuck in a car, waiting for the fire brigade to turn up to cut the roof off. What do you do? Is the patient having a heart attack? Hold this. We were on a flight with this, and you know, you're on the flight and the patient has heart block. What do? Take his top off, lie him down, place this on him. You've got his vital signs. What do you do alternatively? Well, you're up there listening. You know, the air it's noisy. He's hot. He doesn't want you lying on top. So yeah, it's incredible when you carry something all the time. And that's the amazing thing. Just like the consumer technology converged, we've now got healthcare technology converged into mobile. And it just means it's always going to be in our pocket. But if you're a doctor, you know what to do with that.
No, I'm not a doctor.
All right.
Anyways, I'm into sport, but can you be able to save that data and send it to your
Absolutely.
doctor?
So it's straight into the cloud. So a cardiologist is looking at every ECG I'll do on this as soon as you see it. But also what's happening with this is that for personal, when you're trying to do fitness stuff, it's great. So just before I came on stage here, I could sit there like this and relax. We've got a musician who uses it for precisely that before they do performances. It's basically a way of looking into how quick you're ticking. And it's quite easy to actually use it to relax. And you can imagine it twinned up when the API opens up, and people develop yoga apps that are linked to it. So you've got an app and you've got this, and it actually really does relax you because it knows what you're doing. And that'd be fantastic for, you know, people who are preparing for exercise or running or some sports.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's really something because that's really mobile data.
Yeah, one of the world's best rugby teams is already using this, and every World Cup rugby player has to have an ECG every year. But this is a phenomenal, and you're going to see some news with a very famous footballer in the next few weeks who's been using this product. So it's got massive applications for just looking into something we see nothing of. You know? And I think, imagine that if it was a sound. You know, imagine if it just beated and you saw it, and a T-shirt. I don't know. It's how creative we can be with this stuff. And it's going to be people that are at events like this that come from different fields, not necessarily the doctors who know how this works, but I come from a sporting field and I like this technology. I want to see if it can work in an area that I can see. Yeah.
We can talk about health, not just people who needs to cure, but healthy people too. Exactly. And exercise and sports is one of them.
Yeah, well, it shows you a response. That's a great thing. A bit like the Withens thing, your blood pressure. By having it all charted, you can actually see, I've gone on this diet, the doctor told me to do it, and we're getting somewhere. I'm seeing some outcomes. That's actually quite hard for patients. So, you know, whenever we do that, the medicalisation thing, the question, I think that comes back to that. We're actually showing patients that this is getting better, that they're doing something and it can often help with the adherence to drugs because they can really see the effect that the rhythm drugs are having. So I can't see you. So if anyone's holding the microphone, speak up. Or is that good? All right, thank you very much.